Welcome to another edition of Our City. We are now in the middle of July. I hope everyone is staying cool. Please follow any directions from our health department regarding heat or excessive heat in the city of Elizabeth. The residents can also visit our social media sites to get any more information on COVID testing or the ElizabethNJVaccine.org to schedule a vaccine. While COVID is not as rampant as it was years ago, it is still in the community. So personal responsibility is extremely important. If you have symptoms, get tested and isolate yourself for 5 days. If you need any more information or have any questions, you can call our public information office at 908-820-4124. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I spent a half an hour on the Breakroom Podcast, which was extremely fun. And the two guys that are running it, Thomas and Darian Diaz. And I'm pleased to be joined by Darian.
Yes, sir.
I am.
Pleasure.
So how'd the podcast go that we did?
Oh, I'd say it went good. What would you say?
Did anybody watch it besides us?
Couple people. We're still trying to get some more people to watch it, but
good.
Step by step.
When was the last time you had a suit and tie on like that, Darian? You're looking good.
I wish I could tell you. I'm feeling good in it, though. I got to do this more often.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
So tell us a little about yourself. We discussed that on your podcast, but now it's my turn to ask questions.
Right. So about myself, I'd say young 21-year-old man, co-hosting a podcast with my friend Thomas, who is at work right now. Shout out to Thomas. And I'm just very curious, very learning, trying to make the most of my youth, which is also why we have this podcast too. Because we like to bring in different, whether it be business owners or people that are established in whatever craft they pursue, and learn about them while allowing viewers the opportunity to hear the story and whatever else may come up in conversation.
So you an Elizabeth kid?
I am an Elizabeth kid. I've been all over the place. I was born in New York, in the Bronx, moved to Roselle Park. And 8th grade, I moved to Elizabeth because of financial issues. And I loved it here. I was right up Elizabeth Ave till a year ago, actually.
So where are you now?
Right now, I'm living by myself because my family moved to Texas. And like I said...
They really wanted to get away from you, huh?
Ooh, I tell you. I probably ran them rampant, but it's all right because I'm glad they always like more space, and I was always, I'm young, so I like a bustling environment where I can meet somebody different every day and whatnot, and I feel that there's more opportunity out here.
Yeah, and you got Texas.
Yeah.
God bless.
I always got Texas to visit, too, if I need to.
So I had the pleasure of being on your podcast a couple of weeks back,
right?
And now being a guest on my show. Tell our viewers exactly what this Breakroom Podcast is. You talked about it a little earlier, and saying about young people's comments. And
right, yeah.
Tell us more.
So the name, Thomas actually made it up. It was inspired by the idea of being at a workplace, and when you go to the break room, you get some time to chill, relax, talk with your coworkers about what happened outside of work. So we really like to give our guests that experience, that when they come in with us, it's like a break room. They're relaxed, they're talking about their life and whatever else is on their mind, really, or on our mind. And we've been doing it for 2 years, I'd say. 2 years, I'd say now. I didn't start with them. I didn't start with Thomas. He started with another friend of ours. And I was really interested in working with Thomas. So one day I brought the question up, if I could do anything with you, just let me help out. He wanted me to help manage. And over time, the workload, I guess, our friend really wasn't into it. At his time, he had other things to handle. So time by time, Thomas and I started doing episodes together and working together. I was inspiring him. He was inspiring me. And I'd say that's how it came about. 2 years now. We just released some of our own shirts. So anybody viewing, please look at our page if you're interested.
What is that page?
It is Breakroom Pod, our Instagram page. I'd say that's our most active page because I'm really akin to pictures and styling and thinking up process. I really like photography.
So do you get revenue from this, or?
We haven't yet been getting revenue. We are an LLC, but most of our revenue would come from selling shirts, and we do have our own bank account. So I like that money to stay by itself so we could spend it on new equipment or overall better quality.
So any setbacks when you started this, Darian?
There's been a couple. I would say that some of the biggest setbacks looking back has been always money, really, because doing something, whatever it is, always takes money, especially if you want to progress. I'd say mental things, because when we started, Thomas hadn't been in school, and it was also around COVID. It was just a tough time for everybody. But we've really been there for each other. Like I said, we inspire one another because we're both curious and want to do better for ourselves.
So you two have a good relationship, the two of you.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
Did you go to school with Thomas, or you met him after school?
Yes, we actually both graduated from summer school together.
Summer school, so you didn't make it out in a regular time.
Sadly, no. We were those kids.
I was probably at your summer school graduation.
We did shake your hand.
Yeah.
Yes. That's funny, isn't it?
Yeah, there's only usually around 100 kids go to the summer school program.
Yeah. And we have a picture in the seats sitting right next to each other by chance. I don't know.
But the kids who don't make it out in June and then commit themselves to summer school shows a bit of determination, and it also shows the ability to look in the mirror and say, hey, I want to get this.
Yes, I appreciate that acknowledgement.
Yeah.
I think so too.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that, you shouldn't no one should look at summer school graduations as failures.
Mm-hmm.
They should look at it as maybe a roadblock in April and May, but then overcoming that roadblock and succeeding.
Exactly.
So the craze behind podcasts today.
Oh.
Everybody's gay. Help me figure that out. I'm an old guy.
All righty.
Convince me to watch podcasts.
So I'd say the good thing about podcasts is they allow anybody, the opportunity to talk on what they know. Now, everybody knows something that you don't. I know something you don't, you know something I don't. And everybody that works with you, the same way, and that's what is so good about a podcast. But also, there are people who don't really come on to educate people, but rather to have a relaxing talk, So say you're at the gym, you probably had a bad day. Let me put my headphones on, and while I get some steam off, listen to these guys because maybe I like their voice.
So what skills do you think you've learned from doing the podcast?
Well, plenty, because I like our growth model. It allows us to talk to various people doing their own thing and learn different things. Like I could speak to you right now, and it also did help me to work on my timidity, my shyness, because
you're shy?
Oh, yeah. When I first, I was just...
Is that why you got all that hair?
This.
You want to hide yourself?
Maybe. It might be a subconscious thing. But
I wish I am a little jealous. That's why I made the hair comment.
I appreciate that. But Yeah, when we were first doing the episodes, I was definitely feeling it. I was shaking a lot, and we would have to pause, cut certain things out. But now I got a lot more used to it. And I'd say the biggest skill podcasting has taught me was not to label your nerves or anxiety as such, but rather to label it as excitement.
So you talked about the guests.
Yes.
And you talked about meeting people like me by doing a podcast.
Right.
So what's the qualification to be a guest on your podcast?
Well, Thomas and I are pretty open to a lot of different people, but the biggest qualification is that you have something to talk about. And
which you do. You're pretty good at this.
I have tons of things to talk about.
Yeah.
And I'd say that's the best way to be. Be interested and be ready to talk about whatever you're presenting, whether it be, we have an episode coming up with a young lady that I knew from high school who went through some problems and put a restraining order on a young man. And we thought it would be cool to bring light to that for women's safety.
Tough issue to talk about, though.
Exactly.
And she didn't mind doing it.
She didn't. And
Yeah.
that's why that was pretty, you see what I mean? She had something to offer. She was open to talking about it. And that's all it's really about.
So what about the standards of bigger podcasts?
The standards of bigger podcasts, I'd say there's tons of people doing it, like I said before. So I'd say it's really all about quality. You have a very nice room, nice lighting, cameras. Those things are all extremely important. And the little things that go on behind the scenes, like how the videos are edited. And of course, I feel like once you have good quality, it makes everything easier, because there are people that aren't necessarily the most talented talkers that have very huge podcasts.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I'm saying.
So tell me about some inspirations in this.
Well, I like to find inspiration everywhere. Thomas is more planned out with where he finds his own inspiration. He looks at big guys like Nelk podcasts. They're all the young people my age like them today. Of course, Joe Rogan. He has the same birthday as my dad and lives in the same place as me. He lived in the same place as me. I do right now. So Joe Rogan's an amazing conversationalist, and there's a lot to study off him. I also like history podcasts. Because they usually go on for like 3 hours, sometimes even longer, just talking about history, which is very focused to me, and I love focus.
Doesn't Joe Rogan, though, have some wild, crazy thought processes?
Oh, man, tons. And really, his guests are to thank for that, too, because he brings in all the craziest people from the craziest places you wouldn't even imagine.
I know. I only know what I read about the guy.
Right.
I never listen to a podcast. So you got a favorite memory on a podcast yet?
Well, there's a new memory to create every day. This is probably my favorite memory right now, I'd say.
Oh, there you go. For the moment, right?
Yeah.
We're making a memory now.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
It'll be hard to top this, but...
you'll top this.
Yeah, I'm open.
Probably in a week.
I'm open to the experiences.
So how does the Breakroom Podcast, before we close, how does it progress? What's next for the Breakroom Podcast?
So, like I said, a big thing is quality. Of course, Thomas and I have to better our schedules, lives in general, so that way we can allow more opportunity for growth financially and mentally, because these things reflect on anything you do. If you have a healthy mind, everything else will be healthy. But we really want to grow our savings, finance, get the right equipment. We got some people helping us, like Rob. He was here for our episode behind the cameras. And we obviously want to be able to pay him eventually too for his efforts, and we want to get paid from it. So I see that as being a big help in growing, and of course talking to people like you who have been doing what they do for years. Because when you do that, people see, and it builds trust. Once people could see that other people are entertaining your business, they say, what's that about? And then they're curious, they want to take part.
So, Darian, I want to thank you for taking the time to come here and do this show with us. We're not a podcast, we're a local access station, but...
Right, and I thank you for, it's been a pleasure. It's super exciting to have been talking to you about all of this, and I hope that our podcast, being on your show, can also help attract a younger audience as well. And
the old guy, that's pretty good. You're looking for me, the old guy, to get a younger audience.
Not bad. But also because we haven't necessarily, I didn't hear about this before coming here, and I know that a lot of people my age too didn't hear about it, and there's a lot of talent in Elizabeth. So
there is. So I want to wish you and Thomas well on the Breakroom Podcast, and hopefully maybe in a couple of months I'll come back and do another thing with you.
Thank you. We'd love to.
All right. I want to thank Mr. Darian Diaz for joining us as a co-host to the Breakroom Podcast. And if you have time in your schedule, tune in to the Breakroom Podcast. It's at Breakroom Pod, right, on YouTube?
Yes, sir.
There you go. So we'll look forward to seeing you again on another edition of Our City.